Hello, Modern Sages Soul Tribe. Jen here. In this episode, I wanted to share some personal experiences about embracing the medicine within. Are you searching? Are you looking for something new, something different? Are you being called to your ancestral roots? The Modern Sages podcast is a tribe of women that believe in exploring beyond the broken constructs of society. We believe in empowering women to embrace the medicine within, all with an open mind, baby. Many who are embracing their spiritual gifts often ask, how did you do that? How did you know how to step into it? What was that like for you? And honestly, it was kind of a messy journey. And I think that that's part of the process is learning and growing and learning to trust within yourself. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that space of what my healing journey has looked like. And it hasn't been easy. It has not been perfect by all means, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change it for anything, honestly. It was exactly what I have needed up until this point. And I've also been learning and growing and diving deeper into what that looks like for me in the future. So, ever since really I was little, I have felt deeply connected to spirit, to our ancestors, to those on the other side. You know, when my grandfather Case passed, I remember sitting in this blue recliner chair and my dad was talking about the afterlife and his opinions and his thoughts upon all of that. And I just remember feeling so close to my grandfather and knowing what it was that he was going through and really feeling his presence in my space. And I'm not going to lie, that scared me so bad because I was so drawn to death and I didn't want to be. It was something that made me extremely terrified. Like, I don't want to die. I don't want to take my own life, but I'm so drawn to the afterlife. And at that point, I started reading this book. It was called Return from Tomorrow. And that was a book that I read over and over again growing up as an 8-year old. And that was something that really resonated with me, listening to out of body or near death experiences, other people's interpretation of what the afterlife was. And of course, my parents used to watch like The Medium or The Ghost Whisperer, where you're connecting into kind of the scary aspect of death or helping people cross over and transition. And I was always so drawn to that, but yet it scared me. It was so terrifying. And yet that was something that I grew up really being drawn into that space. I really enjoyed going to the cemetery. It's always been a place that I found great peace. You know, I used to go running to the cemetery and walk and do a meditation while I was there. In high school, I've written many papers upon going to the cemetery and reflecting or writing about what I saw. And it was really an access point of peace for me, which I find very, very, very fascinating. At the same time, in high school, I took a couple different, I think it was 4 different career assessments, and they were different ones. However, the number one in all of them was a mortician. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But even when we had people come to our schools to talk about what they did or what their career was, I would always be so intrigued by those who were dealing with death or a mortician or how they embalm the body or just the basic process of that. And it was just something that always intrigued me. And I would tell my friends and my family, and it almost was looked at as like I was a little bit morbid, is what my fear or concern was. And I look back now, and to me, I'm like, well, of course, that was what I was drawn to. Of course, that would be my expression or what I was in the space of. Little did I know, I was really honing in to step into mediumship and helping people deal with death and to deal with grief and loss in their own beautiful, unique way. And that was part of the journey. You know, I had some friends who had a parent pass away in high school and that really opened my space up And of course, once you get started, stepping into spiritual gifts is not easy and it is messy. It's something that you're trying to understand yourself, you're trying to know your own boundaries, what feels right, how it works, what it looks like. And it's something that I still work on today, but getting started, I didn't know my boundaries. I didn't know other people's boundaries. I didn't know how to honor that. And so stepping into gifts was messy, and there were some friendships that were ruined, and some people that I loved dearly that were not accepting, and separation occurred, which was a good thing in the long run, but it was very painful. It was a very painful process. And when you get started with spiritual gifts, especially with channeling, really it's working off of your frame of reference. And so, me having one mindset when I would deliver a message, I was trying to word it in a way that made sense to me in my own vocabulary. And I think that's one thing that people don't always realize with spiritual gifts and channeling or working with any kind of healer is every person is using or going off of their frame of reference. Regardless of if they want to or not, it's those things that they put words to. So if I were to be a medical medium, I don't have the knowledge of the body. I don't have what each little part of your body is or where it's at in your body or maybe what that could be reassured to in the long run. Like, I don't have that knowledge. And so, me being able to deliver a message like, hey, you need to check your spleen or you need to check this part of your body. Like, I can say, hey, maybe I'm feeling something with the heart. Like, is there something with clogged arteries? Have you looked into that? I might deliver a message connected into that space, but having all of medical terms isn't something that I have the capacity or the space to even know the words for. So when spirit comes in, I might say, "Hey, I'm connecting to the heart," but I don't know the valves. I don't know the different extensions of that. So I couldn't say, "Hey, you need to go check this out." It would be like, "Hey, maybe there could be something related to your heart. Have you gone and checked that out?" Because that's not my frame of reference. And when you get started with spiritual gifts, it's all about your references. It's all about your experience and how you view life or what you've experienced in the process. And so I think, especially for those who are really starting to step into their spiritual gifts, is to honor where you're at. And that was one thing that I learned in a very hard way was, first of all, not everybody is open to different kinds of gifts, and that's totally fine. That is their perception, that's their life path, but that doesn't have to be mine. And that was something that was extremely difficult getting started and being able to trust in myself in that space. The second thing that really sticks out, especially when stepping into spiritual gifts or the medicine within, is we are taught to go outside ourselves for the answers. When we're little, we go to school, we receive grades for our work. We're constantly in the space of receiving external validation for our internal work. And that's just a part of patterning of what society is and how we're raised, and absolutely nothing is wrong with that. But when it comes to stepping into spiritual gifts, that can be so devastating, or it can cause a lot of wounding and a lot of heaviness. Even for myself, I would rely upon others to give me validation, to help me know, or to say, hey, this is okay, keep going. And when I had church leaders who were like, hey, this isn't okay, you can't do this, you're never going to get married if you step into this, it was really devastating for me. And it caused me to have to go within myself. So in the moment, it was really hard and it was really heavy, but ultimately it ended up being a really good thing because when using any gifts or stepping into the medicine, it's going to look differently for everybody. Everyone is going to have their own experience, and as I mentioned before, their own interpretation of what that looks like for them and how it shows up for them, and the joy and the wonder, all of those things. It is a very personal, individual matter. So, having that been said, the only person who can give answers to diving into that medicine or owning that medicine within really is you. There is no other space, is you. And of course, we can work with people and we can have other people help us to dive deeper. And that's also where my healing journey led off to. And we'll kind of break back into this point. But at one point, I had a really devastating experience with a client. And it led me into the space where I was like, I do not want to do this anymore. In fact, I'm angry at God. I'm closed off to religion. These spiritual gifts are too heavy. It can be so amazing in the process. But then if someone reflects on it, or if maybe it resonated at the moment, and then someone else was like, they shared their experience, and someone's like, that's not right. That's not accurate. It can shatter someone else's perception. And so there was just a lot going on. There was just a lot of heaviness, a lot of doubt, a lot of pain going on in my life. And it was messy and it was devastating and it was dark and it was very lonely. And at one point, I even closed off going to anybody else for energy or messages or anything because in those times, we can rely upon someone else to give us answers when in truth, we have to go within. We have to find those spaces. We are in charge of our own life. And I had been wounded going to other people in the past, and it just didn't feel aligned with me. And finally, I, said a prayer. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm in such a dark spot spiritually. I feel so alone. I feel so afraid. And this was after I had already been doing readings for about a little over a year. And it just wasn't as satisfying. It was heavy. There was just a lot there. And at that point, I prayed, and Candace, who was previously on this podcast as a host, um, she posted online that she was accepting new students. And I wasn't really sure what that was. I wasn't sure what she was doing. I knew that she had shamanic practices in her belt and a medicine woman, but I didn't even know what that meant either. And it just felt aligned. So I reached out. We had an introduction call, and everything just seemed to be aligned. Like, yes, this is what I need to do. I need to just step into this. And the one thing that I will say that I love about the shamanic practice is it's all about deepening the self. It's all about honoring your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual side. And along with that, she never told me what to do. She never gave me the answers. She led me into these beautiful spaces of healing so healing could take place myself. And she was just a guide up into a certain extent, and then she allowed whatever my process was to happen, and that was through journey work, which is it's like a form of meditation where you almost like exist outside of your body in this higher plane of consciousness, and you're able to bring in healing and connection and understanding, where she just led me up into this point, and then she said, here, God, the universe, her higher self, here she is, and you take on whatever it is that she needs to experience and you bring that healing into her form. And it was so beautiful. It was exactly what I needed in my life to heal my religious trauma, my trauma from using my spiritual gifts, all of the ins and outs, the messy part of my story. And it was so soul fulfilling, and it's been so beautiful. And up until this point as well, I have been really, focused on helping others to strengthen their spiritual gifts. I've been taking on people individually to work with them as far as honoring their spiritual gifts. I have some students who I'm helping also, just as Candace did, lead them through journey work to their own healing of shamanic practices, and even just finding peace in their soul in a way that worked for me. And that's been a beautiful part of my medicine that I didn't have access to until I had those devastating times. And that's what I'm saying is how beautiful it was that Candace didn't tell me what to do or tell me how to do it. She just led me to that space where I was responsible for my own healing. And I found that so refreshing and so beautiful that I wasn't going to her for healing, but she was just this conduit for my own expression deeper in myself. And I feel like that's where I've been being led is I love delivering messages. It has been soul fulfilling. And I've been reflecting a lot recently upon spiritual gifts and upon my space and moving into that direction. And just as there was this leveling up in my life, stepping into being a medium, I feel as though there is this new leveling up that's surfacing within me of honoring what that looks like. And I don't know what that looks like. What I do know is that I want to be a voice of change and be a voice to help others who feel called to embrace their own medicine within, to offer support and to offer tools and tips, but to not be the one to do all of the healing or to deliver all of the messages. I still will use mediumship and I will still offer sessions. However, I just feel there is this leveling up, and I don't know how it's going to look, what it's going to look like, but it's this space of helping others dive deeper so that they can find their own answers, they can have their own healing, and they can really explore and take on what it means for them. It's almost like taking a back seat in the space of delivering to help others empower them to receive themselves. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I take it day by day. There are times where I was just in Utah and I wasn't as connected. I didn't take time to be still as often, and I could feel how ungrounded I was. It was exhausting and draining. My body hurt. I was so tired, and it was because I wasn't taking care of my soul, and I knew that, and yet I still didn't do it. We all go through those times where we know what we should do, and then we have to bring ourselves back into that space of remembrance. And that's part of this human journey. That's part of the cycle. And while I was there, we had a cacao ceremony, and I had Candace and a couple other beautiful women in my life participate in this cacao ceremony. And I decided that I would be the facilitator who was just in charge of blessing the cacao, passing the cacao out, passing the cacao to those who were present, and facilitating this beautiful ceremony. And as I was preparing that day, I sat in prayer and meditated. I just really allowed myself to feel this beautiful medicine and this beautiful space of stepping into that role as a leader instead of having to deliver the messages, but to help guide people into their own sense of self. And it was extremely powerful and it was so terrifying at the same time. But I know that part of my medicine in the world is to channel. It's to be a channel, but it's also to help others to see that they can channel themselves. They can channel for themselves. They can access that expression of whatever that looks like for them. And, our cacao was based upon the element of water. We get this cacao from this beautiful company where it's earth, fire, air, and water. And depending upon the moon cycle and everything like that and the stars, you can use whatever cacao is based upon that. And we were in the water sign. And so we used the water cacao. So along with that, we had a water ceremony and it was so beautiful. So I found these beautiful bowls at this thrift store, and each of us went around the circle and we had this water and we talked about what we were going through in life, and we poured that water into this bowl, and we each had our own individual bowls. And we talked about where we were at in life, what we were hoping to release and to let go. And so each of us went around and we poured that water and we said our intention in our prayer. And then after that, I had gotten like sprinkles and food coloring. And then we used flowers and plants and dirts and rocks from the backyard that we were in. And in that space, we had a moment to create in our water what it was that we were wanting to let go of. or what it was that wasn't serving us in this new phase of life. And then after we go ahead and we created that space, we went around and we said what it was that we were willing to let go of, or what we are setting the intention for, so that this beautiful cacao plant, this beautiful cacao medicine would help us to relieve and to let go. And I had participated in a cacao ceremony before, and it was fire. We used the cacao of fire. And while we were there, it was this creative, it was this dance, it was this deep energy. And we crafted, we had paints and all kinds of different art supplies, and we wanted to move and to just really get into the flow of passion, to get into the flow of fire. And this water ceremony was so different. So we went around and we said all of that. And then I played some beautiful music and I passed out the cacao. And we each just sat with the cacao, breathing it in, just taking it in and experiencing the beauty of what that was. And then two of the ladies were going through a lot. And it was a beautiful space of releasing, of shedding layers, of letting go. And we all cried. And we all experienced the power of water and of emotion, and of how that is such a beautiful aspect of why we're here. And, one of us was going through a deep loss and a sense of celebration, of honoring one's soul, one journey. And we sat there bringing in powerful energy, holding space for her. And I could just feel her emotion and the power of earth and the power of why we're here, the power of water just flowing outside of me. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And it was such a beautiful ceremony. It was absolutely so freeing. And it was exactly what our souls, each of us, needed. And then at the end, we were able to place something in each other's bowl. And if we felt inspired, say what it was and give it in that space of this blessing. And then at the very end, we held our bowls, we infused all of our energy, what we learned, if we wanted to add anything else into it. And then we brought it back to Mother Earth and we gave it as an offering, or our Aini, back into Earth, as we participated in this beautiful cacao ceremony. And it was absolutely perfect. It was so exhilarating, and it was terrifying because I hadn't really been a facilitator in that space yet. And yet, that's what I was being called to do at this time. And I feel like there's just this leveling up, not even leveling up, but this new expression that is to be created through me. And it's scary and it's very intimidating. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know how that's going to show up or what that will be. I'm hoping that we have a kid pretty soon. And I don't know what that's going to look like, stepping into the medicine and how I can express myself and teach and to share with others. But I do know that this is absolutely always a part of who I am. And just as much as stepping into being a medium was such a great experience, there's this space of trust and surrender. And I feel as though, not that it's coming to a close, but I feel like there's this new level or this new space opening up to just trust in what lies next. And so, in that same space, as I've been sitting with that and contemplating what that looks like, I've also felt really drawn to writing my book about what it was like stepping into being a medium and messages from the other side. So, that's something that I know in this next year, where I'm in October, I know by December, I want to have that done. And that's something that I'm feeling very inspired and very pushed into that space. And who knows even if it's going to be successful or what that even looks like. But it's just taking day by day, is taking that step. And it's moving into this new space, which I find very interesting because as I got started in mediumship, it was almost like I needed to write and reflect myself to open up that space for those gifts to arrive, or for those gifts to arise within me. I started a blog and I talked about my connection as a child and in my junior high years and high school. And and where I was at. But it was when I was typing that blog, when I was sitting with it, when I was allowing that medicine to activate within, that there was this sense of rising. And I find it very fascinating that once again I'm being called into the space of writing to then allow that to rise. And who knows what that looks like, but that's also the beauty of the medicine is that medicine is active. It's actively moving, it's actively being engaged, and it's actively stepping into this new space. But if we don't ever start, we're never going to go anywhere. But we're being called into this space for a purpose and a reason, and who knows why. But when we can align, when we can center ourselves, when we can say, I know that I am aligned and what it is that feels right for me, that's what we're being called into the space to do. And there's going to be ups and downs and challenges and pitfalls, but that's part of the process. That's part of our journey here. And that's what our ancestors want us to experience, is to experience the triumph over those things that maybe held them down. Because our soul is here to grow and to learn and to co-create, and we don't always know what that looks like. You know, the saying life happens when you're making other plans, it's 100% true, and I have experienced that time and time again, and I'm experiencing it once again in my space. But instead of holding on to the fact that this is who I am, for the past 5 years, I have been a medium and a medium and only a medium. But what if there's more? What if there's something else? What if I don't have to label myself as just being a medium? What if I want to open up myself to be an author, a creator, a medicine woman? You know, maybe I want to write cards. Like there's so many different things that we can experience. But if we hold on to those labels that we have defined ourselves as, it can hold us back from being able to grow and to express and to move in that beautiful space of co creation. So, I don't know, just a lot of things have been on my mind lately, a lot of shifts, a lot of changes. I'm really excited for this soul tribe to take fire and to move forward in really helping others embrace that space. And I am still navigating what that even looks like. I know for a fact that, you know, when I do step into the space of motherhood, when that does happen, I want to have a tribe of women who, if I want to share a class or we want to get on and practice readings with each other, you know, we have that space to do it. And it doesn't have to be scary or heavy, but it can be a fun sense of like, hey, you got this. And it all starts just like line upon line, little things at a time. And if we get too caught up in the end goal, we can forget the process. And I have to remind myself of that all of the freaking time. And stepping into the medicine looks different. It's going to be good, it's going to be sad, it's going to be messy. But when we can remember the purpose of it, it brings in a different sense of awe, a different sense of wonder. And when we have those pivots, when we have those life changes that we're not expecting, we can access the peace through that medicine. And that is the point of the Modern Sages Soul Tribe. That's what I want to do here at the podcast is to just be a voice of hope in a changing world, in a world where we're taught that it's not okay to embrace our medicine. It isn't okay to rely on ourselves because it is. That's what we're here to experience and to explore. And we have so much support in that space. And I am 100% so passionate about that. And that's what feels good for me right now. So that's what I'm really going to focus my energy and lean into. And maybe that's not having mediumship sessions for a while. Maybe that's working with people that I've worked with in the past and or maybe that's doing both. Who knows? But at the same time, it's all about growth. It's all about listening to our heart's calling and moving forward anyways. So I hope that this podcast really resonated with you. I was going in a whole different direction before starting to record and this is just what happened. So I know it's aligned for whatever reason. Maybe it's me just talking out my own stuff, but at the same time, we need each other's stories and experiences to help us embrace that within. So I love you so much, my beautiful Modern Sages Soul Tribe. This is the time to embrace the medicine within. If you have been called or you feel that calling to embrace the medicine within, please join the Modern Sages Soul Tribe. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck that looks like, what the heck the purpose is, how we're going to move forward, but I'm excited and willing to just see what spirit has in store. Do you feel called to connect to your medicine within? Have you wanted to strengthen your spiritual gifts? Are you looking for ways to incorporate the sacred into your everyday life? Maybe do you want to have like-minded friends in a tribe who can connect with you? Modern Sage's Soul Tribe is dedicated to spiritual seekers like yourself who are embracing the medicine within. Now, in this tribe, we are going to be doing moon gatherings, amazing spiritual gift giveaways, connecting to a soul tribe, as well as hosting mystery school classes. If you are feeling called to connect to the soul tribe, I will leave a link for you in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to Modern Sages Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us online. Blessings.